Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One episode 118, a very special one because I've been personally waiting to do this for a long time. Welcome to the show, Ajey. So good to have you here, and thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, thanks a lot for inviting me. I'm like super excited to talk to you. Usually
Yes.
a different thing, but I'm very humbled and honored that you guys actually thought that I should come and talk. So yeah, honor is all mine.
No. I think so. Between Amit and I, of course, we've had so many folks join us over the years that we've been doing this podcast, and I know I wanted to have you as a guest for a while. And by that time you had not. I don't think you had done any podcasts, right? Or very few.
No,
Uh,
no,
and
very one or two maybe.
and now that you're finally here on this episode, I think last few months you have done more podcasts than anyone else. At least that's what it
More
seems.
podcasts than ever.
so
More
so
podcasts than ever. Yeah.
so thanks for making that time. Of course, for everyone else, I wanted to introduce Ajey, who is the operating partner and CTO at Sequoia Capital India and APAC or SEA. And but before that, I think Ajey, you've had quite a very interesting story, of course, of doing some crazy things and very big things. So I actually wanted to give people a little background in your own words of what your journey has been and why. What motivated you for that every stage of the journey that you had. So could you help us with a little bit of that background?
I think one of the things which happened to me that it was always being uncomfortable, right? You always should be uncomfortable with whatever you do. If you're not uncomfortable, whatever you do. So I always believe in these two things: be uncomfortable and try to be redundant. Not from the life, but try to be redundant in your current job so you can do something better, right? So I always had this thought process of like being uncomfortable, and that's what led to me from one thing to another thing. Uh, to it is kind of self-inflicted pain. So you get comfortable, and okay, how do I become more uncomfortable now? How do I like?
Wow.
What is the next step where I'll be uncomfortable, and let's go and try to do that. And whatever you say, almighty or whatever you say, something, but with all the friends, well wishers, and people, and like a lot of work, I always found myself to again get kind of comfortable, and then again next journey starts of being uncomfortable. So if you rewind back, like I started my career as a graphic designer, and then I printed like I did a screen printing business to print business
Mhm.
cards. Then I sold computers. Then I ran a DTP shop with my brother, printed wedding cards. And then I got into software. And then I spent like 10 years, first 2 years with the National Center for Software Technology, which is like offshoot of like TIFR in like early 60s, 70s. And then got into a consulting firm called ThoughtWorks.
Yeah.
I joined them as a developer, and almost every year I changed my role, which was great. But at some point of time, travel took over life, and I thought, travel, I don't want travel. And at the same point of time, my second son happened, and I'm like, okay, let's not do travel. So I went and joined a startup to do something on mobile engineering. Did not know anything about mobile, so did that, but because of various things that didn't click, not because of technology but other things, and let's not get into those details. So I thought, okay, I think I'm useless to get a job, so let's start startup. So that point of time, a year-old boy, a 6 years old boy, and I started startup with a bunch of people. uh, Completely failed in building a product. And whenever you build a product and you fail, you sometimes say, oh, we are ahead of time. But I think we were not, nobody's ahead of time, I think so. Mostly like we didn't find the proper product market fit or whatever, right? And so we pivoted, got into cloud automation and distributed computing kind of business, and started working with a lot of startups. And there came Sequoia portfolio companies, three or four. And one of them was Tokopedia, one of them was Go-Jek. And then we were to work with Go-Jek a lot. And they kind of liked us, we kind of liked them. They said, why don't you come work full time? And that point of time, again, we were very comfortable doing our consulting businesses. So doing
Yeah.
nice, fantastic. We are on a good trajectory, good growth path. But then we said, okay, let's do this. If we fail again, we'll at least say we built a product and we'll get that experience. So went to Go-Jek. I spent like 5 years there. Uh, Became super comfortable but super burnt out again. So now I call my new job as like again a fresher's job because I don't know anything about this job, and I'm 6 months into it, and I'm still trying to find my ways. And hopefully, in another 1 or 2 years, I'll find my way and figure out where I'm heading. But yeah, looks like a long haul because there are a bunch of things which actually made me choose this job. One of thought was always was that you should. I also believe in giving back to community a lot. So I have been organizing conferences for like last 10 years. Like three flagship conferences have been in India was RubyConf India, DevOps Days India, and GopherCon India, right? And we have been organizing for like last 10 years. That is another story why we did that. So this looks like a way better chance for me to go and contribute to many startups as an operating partner. My job is to go and help them multiply if they can, and if I can help them, tell them my failures. So it's like mostly not I'm not there to advise them like how to do this. I'm mostly there to tell them like what not to do. And I think that is more important. So that's how my journey. Pretty exciting in a lot of things, and I'm like grateful for everything which has happened. So yeah, that's in summary.
Awesome. And there's so many bits and pieces of that I do want to get into a little bit. But the first part actually, maybe, or rather the at least when your software journey started, you mentioned, right? Obviously, you built a software consulting business, and that was basically the first entrepreneurial jump that you took. And I little bit relate to this because I think not to mention any of our ages or how old we are here, but that was a big sort of opportunity in early India, right? The offshore consulting, the overall just running a dev shop, right, was a big opportunity. And when you went into that, what was the state of the engineering community back then versus now, right? I mean, now engineering is this glamorous and we'll come into how cool or how uncool it is, but at least that back then there were few people who, it was all the outsourcing model, right? It was just like, hey, some business guy is going to go and get us some work in the US or abroad, and then all you guys have to do is sit in the back room and code. What were you guys trying to do different, which put you on the doorsteps of a up and coming VC funded startup like a Go-Jek? Because those companies usually build in-house. Like every startup is known to build in-house and not look out and not go to these typical offshoring places. What made you guys different?
So one of the things which we always believe that there are two ways to look at the brand, right? One way is that you stand out with your USP, and second is you go with the crowd, right? We could have gone with the crowd and we could have like done that. But one of the things which was fortunately, unfortunately, I was very much involved since the early days was this whole CICD continuous integration, all this stuff. Like very few people know the first CI tool came out of ThoughtWorks. It was called Cruise Control. And then after that, like Jenkins came, and then there is a lot of things came. Our Go CD came from ThoughtWorks, which is commercial version of Cruise and all stuff, right? So one thing was that. So I was always fascinated by last mile of software delivery. I think that is one of the most critical part, and sometimes people don't get it right. And I was fortunate enough to work with good people who wrote a bunch of books, like Martin and Zez Humble, who wrote Continuous Delivery book, and all this stuff was very nice, right? So given there, one of the thought process was for me was that if we are going to go and write software, it has to be very specific use case. If we are other hundreds of people, then we can't command rates, and second, we can't deliver a differentiated value. And that differentiated value was one of the most important thing for me. And that point of time, the configuration management tool were coming in, convention over configuration was coming out, and a lot of things, right? And that kind of made a lot of good change in people's thought process. Agile kind of became mainstream. CD was like people like started using terms of like builds and all stuff. So it was good time for us. But still the other stage, and when I went into market, it was pretty shocking to see that people don't do basic stuff in terms of a lot of things around software discipline, in terms of software delivery discipline, and our software like creating software discipline is still not there in many places, right? So and second thing was like we were lucky to see a lot of good companies coming out of India. This is like I'm talking about like 2014, 2015, when like we already had Flipkarts and Snapdeals and other companies of the world and a lot of startups coming up, and everybody needed something. And that point of time, Travis CI was just starting. But while you can have these software services, but you need to have concepts and how to do that, right? And that's where we found our niche. And that kind of got into one more thing was performance tuning. Because what happens is cloud, right? Like once you have unlimited resources, kind of unlimited resources are at your disposal. People don't like, one of the things which I realized that people don't care about like cloud CPU usage. I have seen many companies who are like 7 to 10% users, and I like, and one company we pushed for like around 60% users. So one of the managers came saying the CPU is so much utilized, and I was like, yeah, they should utilize 100%. Like the cloud service provider charges you 85 cents per hour, and if you're using only 8 cents per hour, you're giving them like some 75 cents free. Why do you want to do that? Your CPU should really clock up like 60 cents because that's what you're paying for. So those things we thought that performance tuning, distributed computing, asynchronous microservices, those are just coming up, and people were not using it appropriately. And that was our niche. So we could go in anywhere and immediately show two values. One, your builds are automated within like 4 weeks. And then you don't have to worry about it. You check in and the build will go. If you want, we had this extreme case as well. If you check in, the build will go unless you put flags.
Nice.
Or you can go and click a button and just get it done. And we dealt with some of the largest clients. We had one client who had like 1.2 billion mobile devices, and we were building it for their MDM. I can't tell you the name, but that's what we're building for. And they're struggling to put the software up. They had like 3 months release cycle, and like 1 month will just go into release. So we brought it down to like 4 weeks, and that was like huge value add. And same point of time, we started talking to Sequoia and a bunch of other VCs as well, and said like, you guys will have similar issues. And then my good friend Sidhu was running C42, and he was running like proper niche boutique consulting services where he would go and deliver software in like much better way. So we kind of thought like, if we combine forces together, so you can do first mile and I can do last mile, and we called something called CodeMonk. And so we started working with CodeMonk early 2015, had a bunch of clients. And by October, we did not anticipate that, but by October, the offer came in, and we were already working with Go-Jek for like 3 months. We all went ahead for like doing it for another 3 months, like the people. But one of the USPs which we had was like very high-end boutique niche offerings, which I think everybody should aspire for. And one of the things which I also did was outcome-driven projects or outcome-driven products, which is more around saying if it's successful, success is both mine and my clients. But if it fails, failure is only me. This is like leadership principle as right? Success is for team and failure is for you. And we did that. And the outcome-driven thing kind of made a lot of click, because once you do outcome-driven stuff, word of mouth is one thing which gets you more and more people, right? And then we just got like hordes of offer to work with them. And like, no, we are very small people. We are only 25 people. We can't work with many people. And we had higher ramp and all. So yeah, that is what happened. So I think that we had found that good niche around that ecosystem when people knew a lot about writing software, but did not know how to take it to production. In summary.
Nice. So you were basically able to see how the future of software development would scale, and obviously you were using the latest tools and the platforms that were available. And I think you've eventually that became sort of standard. I hope I'm guessing all high growth startups today obviously have to deal with these things firsthand in terms of how to manage your engineering team, how to set it up, how to roll out products, or set up that
Oh yeah,
production line, right? Once you start
yeah.
to
It
scale,
has
that's
become
what you need to
amazing.
do. That's what
Yeah,
you
it
need to
has
do.
like now it's a kind of playbook. Now it's like a kind of playbook, and there's so many software services came in. So like you have, and that amazing like control plane services coming, CICD service coming. If you look at CNCF landscape, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And but it's amazing, right? Like we did not have those things 4 years back. It's just 4 years just exploded like anything.
Yeah. So when you jumped into again the Go-Jek sort of journey, and that's been a large part of your journey, obviously, up until 6 months ago. So what was that like? Because I also want you to share a little bit about the fact of running such a large tech org, right? Obviously, as the group CTO, and then this entire mountain of engineering talent that you had to deal with, and obviously not just that, then the various product and services that you were building. So Go-Jek in itself being a super app and not just your regular product, plus the entire structure that you had as a massive engineering team. How was that? Like, how did the last 5 years go for you in being that, managing that?
Can I talk about a joke? Let me tell
Sure.
you a joke. So this the car mechanic had a client who was a doctor, and doctor and the car mechanic was like asking like, Doctor Saab, you also change the engine of humans, and I also change the engine of cars, but I get paid so less. You get paid so much. So doctor said, yeah, that's true. And then doctor starts the car, opens the bonnet, and shows him the engine, saying, now change the piston. Correct? Like when engine is running. And it was like that. We were like changing the pistons while the engine is running without disrupting things. So we had to grow, we had to rewrite things, we had to overhaul. So it was like complex. It was like really bad in terms of stress. And because the thing is, we were dealing with this 5 to 10% traffic week on week, which is increasing. So compounding that traffic goes crazy, right? If you have 10% interest, 5 years, your money doubles. Same with us. 5 weeks, our traffic doubles. Every 5 weeks, our traffic is doubling. So if you are doing like 10,000 orders per day, after 5 weeks, you're 20, another 5 weeks, you're 40, another 5 weeks, you're 100, another 5 weeks, you're like 200, another 5 weeks, you're 500. So you went from 10,000 orders to 500,000 orders in 6 months, correct?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I just told you.
Right.
and that was really, really crazy in terms of how do we handle this, right? How do we handle this without disrupting? So we were like, every day we were on this. I used to get up every day and like, what is going to happen today? And every day you are solving one problem and next day something else will fail. So it was continuous failure. So I endured a lot of sadness and pain for first 1 year, but did not give up. I had so many moments in like, leave this thing. It's not something I should do, but I had a lot of good colleagues and friends who actually we were all in together. So one of the things which worked for Go-Jek, that we had this amazing team culture where the ownership was not only mine, everybody owned it. Everyone owned it. First 100 guys, everyone owned it. So that is one thing. And second thing was adding more colleagues every day. And then 2016 was craziest year for us because we were launching a product every 4 to 6 weeks. So we launched around 16 products in 9 months. And all of them we had crazy product market fit in every day. So all of them found crazy market fit immediately, because it was like what we were doing early days, which I can distill now, saying we were creating a marketplace for unstructured market. Let me put it that way. So whether you have masseuse, whether you have like food delivery, whether you have like, and our food delivery from like roadside shops as well.
Yeah.
So, and that is a big cult thing. You have like, of course, you have like a lot of these roadside shops, even in Bombay, which are like really famous. Like I still miss the Chinese around outside Dadar station. Those kind of things, right? So our Bhav Sadakka, there is a Vada Pav shop over there. I don't know who, and there are many more Bhelpuri shops and all this stuff, right? I miss those. So we had that. So that cult exploded. And so what happened? What happens over there once you have like these many products? they are very small teams. Like every team was like 4 or 5 member team. You wouldn't believe this. Our driver app had only 4 people for longest period of time. And our competitors has like 200 people, 300 people on one app, same app, right? So once you have 4 people, then lot of time what you are doing is monkey patch. Every product problem has 2 solutions. One is tactical and second is strategic, right? Strategic solution you can only apply. That is luxury if you have enough people and enough time. More than people if you have enough time, correct?
Yeah.
Time is the luxury over there, right? Time is the most valuable. So one of the strategies we adopted was iterating fast and failing fast is much better than trying to find a perfect solution, right? And that kind of helped us in terms of org. And then what we said, like, go hire people, but don't drop the bar. So we could only double ourselves every year. That means think about this: one person brought another person, and that kind of helped us. But if you look at the exponential way, again, this was very powerful, because if 2015 we were 50, 2016 we were 100, 2017 we were 200, 2018 400, 2019 800, right? And 2020 pandemic hit us, we were 1600. Correct. So, but every time what happened, that kind of helped us a lot while we endured that self-inflicted pain of not growing crazily and not hiring people. Because again, one more anecdote is that you should look for what you're optimizing for, and we are optimizing really for the talent and quality, not the quantity. So, given that, 2 things which came out of that, like ruthless prioritization, literally ruthless prioritization, and over communication. And kind of helped us a lot. I would go to staff meetings. I would go with this all hands. I would do this weekly engineering leadership meetings, and I would call people. I would, like, 50% of time I was always on the phone, either talking to people or talking to candidates. And it was just communication. That's it. Like, what's happening, what's going on, what's happening. And it's not taking updates. It was never taking updates. It was always understanding what I can do to help them to move forward, and where I can pitch in. What is the most tactical thing and what is most strategic thing? So those were things. So when you have a lot of chaos, over index and over communication, first thing we learned that, and make sure that you do a ruthless prioritization. That's what kind of survived us.
Awesome. I mean, the over communication is so much more relevant for in the past year for everyone. I think having that even before itself is a big learning, right? I mean, now like, if you don't over communicate, especially if you're so remote with all your teams, I think there's no other way out. I mean, you'll just otherwise unwind if you don't over communicate.
Oh yeah, like for example, and I used to travel every week to Jakarta and Bangkok, and I got really tired, and then I moved to Singapore in 2017, so that we had a family issue over there, saying, my son one day said, like, you only come for birthdays and mama's birthday or anniversaries. And I'm like, oh my God. So we moved to Singapore. So that kind of helped with one thing, that I could fly to Jakarta and fly to Bangalore, both places, Monday to Friday, and come back. And so I would spend weekends at home. Earlier, I used to be like only 3 days a month home. Now I can be every weekend home. You have seen me flying, right? Like all the time. So one of the things was, I used to joke to people saying, hey, Ajey, where do you stay? So I say, oh, I stay in airlines, Singapore Airlines, and my family stays in Singapore. So what I did during that travel, almost every lunch or dinner was with people. If I'm not with family, I'll utilize that time as well to understand what's going on, and it's more casual, right? And you get more things. So yeah, communication. And then many more things, discipline and all the stuff. But yeah, communication and prioritization.
So can you talk a little bit about prioritization? I mean, like, how do you make, when you're doing so many different products with so many different teams, right? What kind of decision-making mechanism do you use for that kind of thing? Just, is there a process to it, or is it kind of, in terms of how do you set priorities? Is there a process to that, or is it just in terms of, like, I'm guessing there's a process to it.
Okay, so no, actually in early days, no process. Okay. I'll tell you what happens, right? And this happens with many founders. So the products are actually built by founders' gut feel in first few months, right? But that gut feel does not go for longer period of time. You have to look at data. But sometimes that adjustment comes pretty late. So like till 2016, it was all gut feel. at least till 2017 also it was all gut feel. Say like throw something on the walls, see if it sticks. Doesn't it stick, don't do it, right? So we were in this mode of what should we do? But for engineer, and then we came into mode said what should we not do? Correct. So that how that product process changed from being gut feel driven to data driven. First thing was that, and founders also understood, and things became much better. We had much better research and all the stuff. From me, from engineering side, I was very clear. If we are doing something, what does it impact? Like what does it impact in terms of capability versus capacity, or you say competency versus capacity? You can talk. If that is a framework I always think. And then why we are doing this? Is this core and non-core? For example, that point of time we chose CleverTab, and a lot of times, and like all developers are very accomplished developers. Let me put this statement out there. All developers are very accomplished developers. All developers are very capable developers. So they can build everything in life. But a lot of times they don't realize that this time is not on their side, or this is not their core business, correct? And sometimes very few things in software engineering world has gone towards commodity. Like for example, like containers are commodity now. Before that, people used to, very few niche crazy people used to create their own LXC containers, and like they used to like BSD roots or Solaris zones and all stuff. But cloud, nobody builds cloud anymore. Nobody builds data center anymore. But that was if you do a startup 8-10 years back, first thing is you get a server, you get a line from your ISP, get a static IP address, put a desktop or whatever. Like that's how it. So you need to define what is core and what is non-core. And I was very ruthless about that. So we and like Akash, who was our CPO at that point of time, helped me a lot in that sense. Like as I said, like Akash, Ranjan, like a lot of people, right? All of them are like there's people from Indonesia, people from India, everywhere, right? So the engineering team got a lot of good support in that terms of saying this is what we should do. Like why we are doing something and why we are going out. Are we going out for capacity or are we going out for capability? Or competency. You should try not to go out for competency, but if it is not core, then you should try to go out for competency as well. So that was like this four quadrants metrics that you put core, non-core, you put capacity, competency, and capacity over there, and then figure out what you're gonna do is you're gonna do core and competency, only those things. Rest 3 quadrants, you outsource or you choose software service. So that's how we saved our time. Correct. And then later on, product kind of matured, and like the gut feel went away, and data and research started doing, and things becoming much better. So that was engineering versus product. And third thing which we did, we always made product engineering work together like crazy. It's one team. We always call product engineering. We never called it technology team and product team. Yeah. We never differentiated, and we still should not. So everybody was part of product engineering team. It's like building a building. Building a building means the architect, the plumber, whatever, like plumber and like carpenter and like electrician, they had to work together. So electrician can't put the wires in unless you have like somebody has done the floor. Once you've done the floor, you can't put wire after that. So electrician should go first. Carpenter can't put the doors and windows in unless you have like done the whole plumbing. So those kind of things, right? Yeah. So we took everybody together and talked together.
No, so that you're mentioning this right now about how your team was assembled and stuff. I was looking at the Go-Jek website a couple of days ago, and it mentioned everybody codes. Like that strikes me as insane, right? I mean, like I can't. I mean, like at the size of a company that it is at this point in time, how does everybody code?
So till 2019, it was true. And then, so it was relevant. So if you look at that blog is written in like 2017.
Okay.
I wrote that blog. I wrote 2 blogs at point of time. One is the what it takes to shine at Go-Jek, and Go-Jek Engineering Guiding Principles 101, right? Something like that. The reason I wrote those 2 blogs is because we wanted to have people, I believe in principle of least surprise, especially in reviews and especially in first job. Like if you are giving a review feedback, your review feedback meeting should be like 5 minutes. The yearly performance appraisal should be like 5 minutes meeting. You go and say, this is your number, this is what it is, and person shouldn't be surprised. If you have been giving the constant feedback to him, he knows he expects his expectations set.
Right.
But what happens a lot of times is 1 month, 1 hour meeting and people arguing about each other. So let me come back to that. So that post was written at that point of time that I still believe, and I'm still fundamentally very much opinionated, and like people call me dogmatic sometimes, but I don't care about that. Good teachers are the one who have been through it, right? Then you can say, Ajay, senior guys know your software, they have written the languages, but the problem with that is that the senior guys, and we discussed this on Clubhouse a few days back as well, the senior guys who are there, they can come in and they can give you architecture advice, but they can never show you how to do it right, because they coded in, say, Java or something else, Forte, and now you're writing code in Go and Clojure. So in software engineering world, specifically when you are upgrading your skills, you should be able to go into trenches and teach from your example, write a beautiful code, teach the code. And I'll tell you why. We learn by observing. One of the basic gene which humans got was copy gene. If you look at tabla, music, or whatever, we learn by looking at people, observing them. But software engineering is cognitive ability. So you can learn by observing. You can learn only typing. You can't learn beyond that what is going on screen. The only way to understand cognitive ability is when they see and the only reason they can see what you're doing is by looking at your screen sitting next to you. Correct? Yeah. And that's why you should be able to write code. You don't have to write code 100% of time. So what I mean is you can write code 10% of time. We did not do pull requests ever. We committed to master branches. And that means if you remove the pull request out of it, there's no review, there's no PR, there's no review PR. That means you have to go and tell people, the code you have committed, this is what it should look like. And that kind of worked a lot, because then it brought a lot other discipline of like being crazily unit testing, removing a lot of QA organization towards QA automation rather than QA quality assurance. So instead of quality assurance, we moved to QA automation engineer. We hired QA automation engineers. So your job is to don't test twice, don't run the manual test twice, write regression to suites. So that was it. So that context was it. Now it has changed because we are pretty big. Now Go-Jek is no more a startup. But in early days of startup, that 2016, 2017, till like 2019, early 2019 is a very, very relevant thing. And people should actually go by that.
You brought, I mean, this brings me to another question I wanted to ask about being a engineering leader, or at least running these massive teams, right? Engineering today, and maybe you saw that entire transition phase of when engineers were like outsourced, like I was mentioning earlier, to the most critical of teams for any product company, and like you said, merged with product as well. So now you have engineers who are the ones which are from the current the ones which the edtech companies try to sell to, but at least the ones who become great engineers, the freshers, to your folks who are a little bit of experience, to the very experienced ones from before. How do you manage this something which which we call engineering ego, if I can say that, right? Because I think that's because it's so much in demand. I feel a lot of founders especially have to deal with this. And that's why, given our audience is a little bit of startups and founders who are figuring out how to deal with tech teams and their own engineering teams, how do you deal with that? This wishful thinking, wishful dreamer engineers to the down in the trenches and just get shit done engineers. This expanse that you have. What could you share a little bit of what you've seen and how you've dealt with it?
So going back to the blog post, right? If you read that blog post, there are a bunch of 5-10 things over there. And one of the things which is there is I believe in growing leaders. Hiring leaders from outside is rare, very rare. The first thing is that. And once we try to hire leaders, early days, what used to happen, like 100 leaders will come and the first thing we'll tell them, like, write code. I'm like, what? They're asking me to write code? Yeah. That is a code test, but I'm senior position. That's universally for everybody. And then the next question they'll ask is, do you still write code? Okay. And I knew this question is coming. Yes, I still do I still write the code, right? I will write at least once a month something around some shit, but I will still write the code. I'll still read all the RCAs. I'll still respond to all the emails, right? So RCA emails. So one of the things is like you need to have your gate where first level is your own gate, who you are letting in. Second is as long as this feeling that there are smarter people than me, then this engineering ego gets kind of tamed. And we have been able to manage that. Lot of times, if you get a very good engineering leader and you make him very busy and not let him spend time with people, then nobody will know what he is capable of. And a lot of times what we did, we exposed our engineering leaders to the fresher, let them go and teach them. So we ran this boot camp. I always believe this in apprenticeship in Go-Jek or in my entire life, like take 4 people, 5 people, sit there next to them and teach them. That's what I have been doing all my life. If you look at all my colleagues, they were kind of freshers at some point of time. So and I have worked with them for so I have people I have worked with like last 20 years now. That's like amazing, right? 20 years, wow. 18 years who been colleagues and ex-colleagues and then again became colleagues in Go-Jek, right? I have people like Shobhit and like Mahek and all the coordination gang, which is like my 8 years experience, but I actually sat down and talked with them. I like taught them what is going on, right? And it's a humbling experience. So we kind of that thing of apprenticeship, that guru shishya parampara, that kind of thing is super important. If you establish that, because you can always learn from your shishya as well a lot. Like the way I could remain current was like my hack was to go talk with these freshers and they'll tell you, Ajey, do you know this new control plane software has come out? Like, oh, tell me about it more. And I go and read about it. So I kind of steal the knowledge from them. So that is one thing. We don't spend enough time with people. And I think that is one thing which that's how we were able to handle that ego. And the gate in the beginning will make sure that like people get pissed off when you send a fresher to interview the senior most person, right? They get pissed off. If you get pissed off then you wouldn't be able to work with them, right?
Yeah.
So those are simple things. While some of the business guys in our company would say, hey, that's not fair. You're sending a fresher to interview this. Ajey, I referred you a person from this big company and you sent a fresher to interview him? Like, yeah, he's going to work with them. Now that's not fair. Okay, then he's gonna sit in his ivory tower and work with them. You think that? So building team means that you are working with team. That means that you don't have offices. That means you have flat tables. That means you roam around in tables. And those principles, we never had offices. None of us have offices. I tell you one of the senior person who came to, he was a very humble person. And then first day he comes and he's like, where is my office? And then our office didn't call me, Ajey, this person asking for office. And I go, okay, can I talk to him? Give me his WhatsApp. So I remember this very vividly. I was in Jakarta airport, just about to board plane 15. I called, hey, dude, what's happening? Like, dude, no, nothing. It's all good. No. You inquired about the office. Like, how do you know it? That's fine. Unfortunately, you are in the office. Like, yeah, like, that's your office. And you're like, what do you mean? And I'm, dude, just go and figure out an empty spot and where your team sits and just go sit there. That's how we are. I'm sorry if you missed that. If this is a deal breaker, please let us know and I'll do something about it. And that was it. And that's how we were. So my point is, if you are so basically it doesn't matter whether you win a war or you lose a war. It always matters who stood with you shoulder to shoulder in that war. And that is what the most important thing is. And you have to build that. Once you have that, then egos go away.
In that, one of the other points which are connected to that, which I wanted to ask about, I think you've spoken about it a few times, even in other chats, is this whole, how do you keep your head on straight and keep your mental well-being also in the right place while having to deal with all of this, right? I mean, what you're talking about is a lot of the job you've been doing is also people management, and that's the job of leaders everywhere in any kind of vertical, right? So what have you learned over these years of managing people, keeping these shoulder to shoulder with so many folks, into how to keep your own mental well-being and the things as they are today, and how people can jumpstart that?
So let me tell you this, mental well-being is very important. And stress is a real issue. A lot of time we kind of put it as sideline. On a very serious note, um, stress makes you lonely. A lot of time I felt I was very lonely on the top. Um, I would like have a monologues with myself about like what is going on. Like we had times when we will go down every week. And one of the biggest cause was that integer overflow in our database tables. And what was happening is very simple. We are having so many transactions, and the systems were built long back. We are moving to microservices. We are still using old databases, and some table or other will conk every other week. And I will do RCA, and I'll have meetings with founders, and I'll show my face. And every time I will go and say honestly same thing, saying, I'm sorry, but integer overflow happened. And like, Ajey, can you please do something so this does not? And so one of the questions people ask who don't understand tech is like, can you please ensure that this never happens again? Can you put all those measures right now? And I like, dude, we are like 300 microservices. If I have to do all that stuff right now and change every integer to UUID, it's gonna take months. You won't move. And sometimes they'll understand and sometimes they will not. And again, the same thing will happen. I'm like, dude, can you please ensure this does not happen again? And like, you are again, your head is hanging in shame and like whatnot, right? Not only that, your software engineering, because speed of thought and the speed of writing software is like 1,000 times. Different. Speed of writing software is 1,000 or 10,000 times slower than the speed of thought, right? We should do this, and then like that, and you always say we can't do this. That kind of brings a lot of stress. Like, and sometimes they ask you questions, and so you get on defensive mode. I actually tweeted about it a few days. Like some people have a very superpower of putting you defensive mode, and once you get defensive, they'll say you are being defensive. Like, what do I do? Like you're saying this, and I don't know. So that stress, honestly, that stress was sometimes way too much for me. If I would have not had a good team, I would have not been able to sail through that. I can tell you that. So my request to everybody who's listening to this, like this, whenever you feel lonely, whenever you feel, when you found yourself having monologues with yourself, like while walking, like I'm gonna go tell this, or we should do this. We should, like you try to give, you try to create this script of giving big feedbacks or thinking on like emails, and it's always about how you are right and how they should understand you. If you have this specific thing, then means you are in stress, you are in mental panic, and it's gonna do very, very bad things to you. And I have been through that. And the stress is not about only personal interactions. It's just about like we are going down, fundraisers going on, many things, right? And I've been through, and that kind of comes to physical illness as well. You get blood pressure, you get cholesterol, you get diabetes. Your diabetes goes crazy. You see this over here. So I'm recovering now. So the thing is, I've been through that phase, and one of the things which I did, I randomly call people, and one of the questions I ask is, how are you doing? And sometimes they will immediately tell you how are they doing. Sometimes they will not tell you immediately. They will think about it and tell you. And over a period of time, you'll get better at this. But you should ask your people how are they doing, and watch out for that response very carefully. And if they can do Zoom meeting, if they can do in person, then you can watch out. They're looking left, or they're going to look up or right. Either they are trying to create a solution for you, or are trying to recall a good memory for you. Like those kind of things, people need to understand the body language. And that's what kept my team insane. People would confess me so many things. Later on, 2020 actually brought this kind of mental pandemic to everybody's focus. Late 2018 or early 2019, we rolled out helpline for everybody in Go-Jek. The mental helpline. You can call a psychologist and you can take appointment and talk whatever you want to talk about, right? And it's good. It's good. You should totally go. Every person should not feel that I'm super strong, because the problem is your body gets into this inflammation mode. Your body gets into this like stress reaction mode, very high adrenaline mode, that you are in, like you want to run away from things. And my view is that every time you feel pressure, please either say no or talk to somebody. And it's super important to talk to your manager. If your manager doesn't listen, either leave your manager. So I have tweeted about this as well. Like, if you are not feeling comfortable, leave the role. Next is leave the manager. Next is leave the company. But there's no obligation for you to be there. Your life is paramount, and be careful about it. There's no reason for you to have self-dread. And I feel that this was one of the great learning for me. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. And I think this applies across, like I said, across teams, not just engineering. Something which all startups are
everywhere
learning and figuring out how important is whatever stage you're in, right? However small or big a company you are. So this is awesome. Thanks so much for that. I think it helps us round up. I know I was going to ask you a lot more about your current VC role, but given that it's just 6 months, I think everything you talked about with us today is effective. You are trying to give back to the startups that you currently work with. But if there's any last point with about what you recommend to the folks who are listening to this, whether they're founders, whether engineering leaders, whether they are figuring out what or an engineer themselves, and what do you recommend? And of course, if how are you reachable? Can they tweet to you? Can they listen to you on Clubhouse? Or what do you want to talk about?
Tweet is the best. Clubhouse may not be, but tweet is the best. I don't think I have advice for people, but what I can tell you is what kind of helped me in life. One thing is that. And before that, I'll give you two more anecdotes. So when I said, in 2017, somebody, I think your story did interview me for my life journey or whatever. And they said, Ajey, how are you feeling? And I said, 40 is new 25. So this year, it will be 5. This is 4 years out of that story. You can calculate the age and all the stuff. That's not a problem. My new job is like a fresher job for me. I'm learning on the job right now. And there to tell people about my mistakes. In terms of I will tell you my first principles, and that may resonate with people, and that's what I did. One, I trust people from the day one. So trust is always given; it's never earned. That is one thing which I totally believe. Second is I always optimize or index on people. I have this motto which says "earn people, not money." I always say that. Then earlier in engineering, I have this motto called code, deploy, automate. And so basically code, deploy, and automate. So you don't have to deploy like whatever. So that is one thing, you can decode that. And on product management is like ideate, implement, iterate. So those are 4 or 5 things which I have. And intent. Positivity and intent can take you to places, and nobody in the world has a wrong intent if you did not do anything wrong with it. And if something just did anything wrong with you just because of that, get out of the situation. You always have this was somebody tweeted to me like 2-3 one of my favorite books. I forgot the name. You always have this kind of choice of every action, which is called blow the lid or cover the lid. And once if you blow the lid, somebody will cover the lid. But if you cover the lid, somebody will blow the lid. That kind of things. Basically, what happens is, I'll give you a simple example. You go to hotel, you get a food has more salt, and you blew up. And you call the waiter, and the waiter says, no, it's not more salt. Maybe you have wrong taste, and you blew up more, right? On the other hand, waiter can say, sorry, sir, it's perfectly fine. I'm sorry. This is on us. I'll get you this food. I'll get it done again. Would you like to have any other dish or a starter or like a dessert? We can offer you, and we are apologizing. And you'll calm down immediately, right? So cover the lid. Try to do cover the lid all the time, not the blow the lid. And that kind of helps a lot of times. So these are the few things which I have learned. I'm not saying try to avoid conflicts. I'm not saying try to avoid conflict. What I'm trying to say is that be nice. It's okay to be nice. And being nice never harms people. And anger never cooks vegetables. As I would actually, we put vegetables on the pan and just go like,
get cooked. That's a good one. That's a good one. I think on that note, we will we would, I think, shout out to everyone listening. Ajay is of course reachable on Twitter, and we'll have his credentials at the bottom. But we didn't talk about the kind of coding music Ajay likes, but you should ask him that directly. I know most engineers have like a trance or a sort of vibe when they code, when they listen, but Ajay has a very unique Bollywood uh, favorite. So you should ask him about that, if or anything else. But thank you so much, Ajay. This was really amazing. Thank you for spending the time. And everything we spoke about today, I think, is really, really valuable.
I'll just like add to this. Everybody, please go and subscribe or follow us wherever you listen to the podcast. If you can rate us, give us a rating. That's much appreciated as well. That really does help with kind of getting more people to listen to it, and share the show. And we're available
Yes.
on video now as well. So if you want, you can watch this on YouTube if you're watching this on audio.
Yes. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot for inviting me. Like really, really great conversation. We should do it offline as well.
We
It's
would
amazing.
love to have you again.
Actually,
Yes.
no. I actually want to do it next time with both of you, where I will be the one who is asking question. You both are answering.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
people.
Thank you so much.